Thank you. I'm gonna get the screen share going. All right. Pardon me all for a second. This is not my forte. I might need to switch this around. Okay. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then you just see the one slide, not everything.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm excited to be with y'all today. Again, my name is Fielding. I'm talking about leading through uncertainty. And I really think of this as how to lead with confidence through uncharted terrain. As Marissa said, please feel free to ask questions as we go and she can bring them in. I'm much more used to doing this kind of in an interactive way. And so those will be welcome and it'll help me to deepen into any place. My take is if you don't understand something, that's on me. But if you don't tell me, that's on you. So speak up. All right. So just a little bit about me so that this makes sense. I'm an executive coach, a leadership consultant, and a guide. I work in an integral way when I work with people. So whole person, head, heart, body, across the whole life. I've worked in a bunch of startups since being an MBA, but a lot of what I do and where the work comes from is I used to be a maritime captain and an outward bound sailing instructor. And I've spent a lot of days in the backcountry and at sea, from Patagonia in South America to Maine and across the Pacific, a lot of times in areas where there were no maps. And I take a lot of this idea of moving through uncertainty as moving through uncharted territory. So I'm a guide, not a guru. The work that I talk about is really stuff I'm doing as well. And my love of this is really supporting leaders and confidently being true to who they are as they navigate uncertainty and change. There's not a right way, is my way of thinking about it. There's the way that's true to you. And I tend to think of life and work in terms of journeys, and I love metaphors. And this is a big metaphor that I'm going to be taking through y'all through today. So just a little bit about my definition of uncertainty. And I feel like this is especially important today, or in the context of what we're going on. If you've heard of the framework, and I couldn't talk about this at the end, called Cynefin, it describes things as there's 4 quadrants. There's simple, there's chaotic, there's complex, and the last one is escaping me right now. But we're talking about the area that's complexity and not chaotic. So the area where you're unfolding through each step and not the area where, say, the house is burning down and you need to figure out what to do in that moment. That's an act first and then move. But we're talking about, okay, I'm going into an area I haven't been in before where nobody's can really show me the way. And I've got to figure it out as I go. So questions as you begin. So you're heading out on a new journey. You're heading into uncharted territory or uncertainty. A big part is like, where am I now? What do I know about where I am now? What do I want? And that's a really important part to know. And sometimes we don't know that right away. What do I know? And these are questions you can ask yourself as you're leading a team, as you're moving out into the next thing. Sometimes we find this by charting where we've been, what we know, and what we've learned along the way. When I talk about charting, I mean looking back and saying, okay, what has taken me up to this point? So what resources do I have at my disposal, including who's on my team, who's around me? What are my known unknowns? Who around me can help? So they may not know the way to do this, but they may have relevant local knowledge or serve as a guide. The number of times I've been in places and I'm sailing into an unknown area and you look around, you're like, what are the locals doing? What are the fishermen doing? Are they leaving port? Where do they recommend? What do they know about the hazards along the way? Who can serve as my guide here? What does success look like? If I'm headed out to this unknown area, what am I aiming for? What does it look like? And really importantly, what are the markers of success? How do I know when I've arrived? Marissa, let me know if there's any questions that come in.
Nope, not at the moment. You're good.
Great, thanks. All right, so launching when there's no map. You have the beginning of those questions, and then you want to head out. And you don't have an area, know exactly where to go. Nobody's done this exactly like this before, not in the context that you're in. Like the world is changing. As a friend of mine said, at the beginning of the pandemic, what we've lost is the illusion of certainty. It's never been there. We just had felt it's there. Now we're really becoming aware that it isn't there, and we are making these steps as we go. So what do? Be present. Instead of assuming I know this because this looks familiar, let me notice what's in front of me, mindful. Can I look at this as a new situation each time? Let me take one step at a time and notice as I make each step where I am. Sometimes we have to slow down to go fast. That means, can I, instead of rushing out, are we conscious of the direction that we're moving in? Because we can go really fast but end up going opposite of where we want to go. Can we slow down enough to notice where we are, to be present, to reflect on as we go and what we've learned? And then a really important part is keeping a log or a journal for data so that you can capture the learnings and what you know, and reflection, so you can ask yourself the questions. Something really interesting about us as people is we tend to rewrite our memories. We rewrite them sometimes in the positive of like, oh, that was really great when it was a hard situation, or we forget pieces of it, or we can downplay the successes we've had and what we have done. And so that is a way of, as a captain, I kept a log that helped me not just remember the day-to-day and the things that happened on the boat, but to what I learned along the way. And that helped me to also notice how far I've come. That's a really important part when you're looking and you're going into this area. It's like, where is this? When am I going to be there? Sometimes we have to turn around. In sailing, it may be, look how far I've come since the horizon. Or if you can imagine climbing, you look up and see how far you've come since you've come from the valley floor. And then the last part is like, we would rely upon our navigation system. And that's what I'm going to get into next. So what is our internal navigation system? This is you as a leader. One portion of it is North Star values, and I'm going to lead you through a little bit about how to identify yours in the next couple slides. The next part, and so I will go into that, the values that really guide you, to remind you of what matters to you as you make decisions. Blind spot strengths are the strengths that you have that sometimes are parts of the other side of it is something that maybe has gotten in your way in the past. The things that are really can power you in ways and give you incredible insights and capability. An example is people who are empaths, very empathetic. It can feel something they've had to overcome would be being too emotive in a situation, but once they can understand that and really integrate that, then they've got this capacity to have all this information about the people around them because they can feel into a room in a situation. Or someone who has, identifies as neurodivergent, that can be a lot, if they don't have the right supports around them, hard, but then it's this incredible superpower when they know how to use it. So that's what I call a blind spot strength. The last part is the next two are emotions as data. So we have lots of information in the way we feel. And in our culture, I feel like we've been taught to put down feelings, that our feelings don't matter, but there's information there. Anger shows us a boundary's been crossed. Sadness helps us know something needs to be let go of. Fear lets us know that we're going into territory that's scary, and it can actually be a guide because it can show us how to safely move into something that we want to go into, or it can keep us safe. And all the emotions have a piece, but if it's data, it really can help guide us in any situation that feels new by providing us information. And the last part is somatic signals. And that is the information we get from inside of ourselves. And this can be tied to our emotions, but you freeze up, you feel something, where can you lean into that to know what information it's giving you? If there's a tightness in your belly, there's a heat in your back, these things are all telling you something, and there's wisdom in them. We won't have time to go through all of these. And the place I want to lean into today is the North Star values. But these are all parts. When we feel like we're going blind, we actually have all this information that is there to guide us as leaders and to get to lead the people around us if we know how to access it. So North Star values, what I consider to be a core component of your navigation system. All right, so I'm going to ask you as we sit here, to reflect. And if you have a notebook or any place you want to do it, or you can just do this in your head. To begin to identify your North Star values, I want you to think about, who are you at your best? What situations, what conditions, environment, or people support bringing out the best in you? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to really think through that, to reflect on, who are you at your best? And I wish I had music to guide it. Without being able to see anybody, I'm going to assume you're still thinking on it. Give you about 30 more seconds. Okay. The next question. So you have an idea of who you are at your best. And if you've probably all done values work at some point. So this is a bit of a different way of going about it. I'm going to ask you, what qualities or behaviors do you find most off-putting in others? What pet peeves, deal breakers in friendships or relationships, professionally and outside of work? So a couple of examples could be like, if people lie, that doesn't work for me. Or I can't when people are late. Or I'll let you continue to go with it, but anything to you that feels like, and it can even be the things that feel really petty. Take a couple of minutes and think about, what are the qualities or behaviors that you find most off-putting in others? So as you come up with that list, and you may not be at a complete list right now, but what I want you to do is look at, when you think about these negatives, look now for the positive opposite, because the positive opposite may be a core value. So if lying is a deal breaker for you in a relationship, honesty may be a core value. If people being late drives you crazy, it might be, being on time, but I would say more of like responsibility, maybe a core value. If people who, are micromanaging is a pet peeve of somebody you've worked with, autonomy might be a core value. If, being in an environment where people aren't curious and don't want you to ask questions and shut down questions, curiosity might be a core. And if you can't identify those, this is something we can get into in the question period. But what we're working towards is, figuring out what those core values of yours are. And I would say 4 to 5, maybe 6. That doesn't mean that's the only things that matter to you, but those are the things that once you get past, that you can have them on one hand, it becomes too much to remember. All right. So I'll leave this for you to do later, but when you get to it, one part of the values is not only coming up with the name of it, but identifying it and defining it for yourself. So because honesty may mean one thing to one person or another, or integrity, for example. For one person, that might be being honest, being always, doing what you say, saying what you do. For another person, it might be about being in alignment, about, paying attention to all 3 sets of intelligence, head, heart, and gut. So define it for yourself so that you really would be able to articulate it to somebody else. Write your own definition. So why does this matter? And why is this a part of leading through uncertainty? Naming our values makes us conscious of them. It reduces friction by identifying what matters most to us and our related expectations. I really feel like when we are leading and managing, being able to be clear is really kind to others. It lets them know how they can be successful with us. We can't share out what we can't articulate for ourselves. And when a situation feels off, revisiting our values can really help us to identify why. Sometimes it's like, this doesn't feel right, and I can't put my finger on why. So let me get into, oh, wait a second, this feels bad because this person was lying to me. And then revisiting, reflecting our own values helps us to know when and how to course correct and where to put our energy into the actions we take and to move towards what we want to have make happen. And it helps us stay out of the shoulds. One part of going through uncertainty, and we've seen that's the more intense a situation, the more noise there is that's coming in culturally or from media. We can internalize the expectations of others, culture, society, family. That's what I call the shoulds. The things that feel like we should feel guilty about it, but they're not actually from our values. This helps us to identify where is the path I want to take versus what other people tell me I should be doing, and consciously let those pieces go. It helps us to chart our own course. And it helps us avoid compromising ourselves, which may cause moral injury. Moral injury is a term that initiated from, if y'all aren't familiar with it, from people who were in the military. When they joined the military, they were doing it for one reason, and then they were involved in something that was against their values. It causes moral harm. That's, they're a friendly fire or injuring a civilian or something else, and that is what they carry back because it goes against who they believe themselves to be. Medical profession, same thing. There's been moral injury has been spoken about with, doctors in ERs where they've been told to go from one patient who needs certain kind of care to another, to maximize for financial gain instead of for what they got into, which is caring for each person as an individual. Knowing what our values are helps us continue to make decisions as we move towards what we want in alignment with them without, going against that in a way that is injurious to ourselves at our core. So I'll leave this as one way to think about it if you come into, and if you are able to name some of the values, as you name some of the values that are core to you, if there's something that is new to you or that you were like, oh, wait, this is a value and I am not living into it. Here's a challenge. Take one small action you want to take in the next week to work, live, or lead in a way, more values aligned way. And I consider these to be the North Star values because this is what we're aiming for. Nobody lives 100% in alignment with them, but they're there to remind us to come back onto course. We may get off of where we want, but then they help us to go back. And that's really in any kind of journey. If you are hiking, for example, you're zigzagging when you're going up a mountain because you can't go straight up. Sailing, if you're sailing into the wind, you can't go straight into the wind. And so you have to you're constantly adjusting. We're constantly learning as we go. And I guess I'm a couple minutes early, but that is the end of what I have to share with y'all. And thank you for your attention and your time. And I'm excited for any questions, comments, or all thoughts. Pushback, ask questions, anything.
Thank you so much, Fielding. So I know that this is on the screen, but could you tell us a little bit about the work that you do at Third Mast, and if people want to engage with you, how can they do that? And what do you currently have going on that people can engage with?
Sure. Hang on, I'm trying to get back to where I can see all of y'all again.
I can help you.
Oh, no, it's more of, I think it's in share, stop share. Ha,
There we go.
So what your question was, what am I doing and how can people engage with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I work mostly with people one-on-one. I do have a group coaching program that I run that opens up enrollment periodically. That will be opening up again in February. I'm actually currently not taking on more clients, not right now, but I will be in January. I also work with companies to come in and do, really it depends, but components of this work of how do you lead through uncertainty? How do you get your leaders aligned with values, or any of the portions that you saw here, but really usually it's a very customized way. So I'll put in either workshops for a half day or a day, and usually bringing in other content they have that's specific to the company. So yeah, if people are interested, I can, please ping me and I can send you stuff out, and I will have a launch, but I don't have one coming up until February for the group program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are tuning in live, stick with me. I'm just going to stop the recording and then we can ask questions. But thank you so much, Fielding.